So today, again, what we talk about here at CapEx Sales is we want to talk about how we can help our customers, the engineers that we serve, grow their career based on the experience that we have had in the industry. So this industry, this capital equipment world, we've been in it for a long time. We've seen a lot, and our hope is that we can leverage that experience to pour into you as our customers to help you grow as well. So this is part one, like I mentioned, of a series that we're going to do. I think it's a 3-part series on how to manage capital, well, some of the biggest problems that we've seen with capital equipment. So this is part one of 3. All right, so what we do at CapEx Sales, we represent ATC Automation. They're out of Cookeville, Tennessee. 85% of their business is repeat business each year. So that is a big deal because in this industry, if you've been involved in this industry, there are a lot of one and dones out there because of a company failing. But ATC, their customers come back, and that speaks volumes for how they execute and follow through on projects. Cincinnati Test Systems, hard to believe, but they are the largest leak test company in the world. When I started working with them back in 1994 as a customer, when I was an engineer at Cummins Engine Company, they were a very small company, maybe $2 to $4 million in a year in revenue. Now they're the largest leak test company in the world. Truly remarkable. Duquesne Plastic Joining, they are a global and diverse plastic joining company. They do ultrasonic welding, hot plate welding, hot gas welding, laser welding, all things plastic joining. That is what Duquesne does. Just a phenomenal company as well, and very service and customer oriented. Symetric is a division of Cincinnati Test Systems. We break them out because they're a little different. They are a high-speed in-process test and data management. So Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, bringing data together so that you can use it as a tool for managing your equipment and processes to produce the best products for your customers. That's what they help with. And then Keller Technologies, right there in Fort Mill, South Carolina, they have a comprehensive line of industrial air filtration that's wet as well as dry air filtration. So that is the only commercial. Those are the companies that we represent. So the challenge here, so the challenge overall, so what we're going to start, each part is going to have a challenge. So have you ever been asked to execute a project and you weren't sure where to start? Now, if I can tell you from my experience, when I first started at Cummins Engine Company, I was 2 weeks in and they said, "Hey, Russ, we've got $135,000 and we need you to go buy a wash system for the area that I was responsible for as a manufacturing engineer." I didn't know where to start. I had no idea what to do. I understood project management, but capital project management is a different beast. It's a different animal than managing a construction project because of you've got internal people that you have to be responsible for. You've got external suppliers that you're responsible for. You have some people internal to your organization from a maintenance perspective, maybe that are going to need to help with the installation. So there are any number of dynamics that go on with a capital project that are unique and present some real challenges for someone that doesn't have any experience. So I floundered as my first project went. It was late and it was over budget. So I failed on the 2 scores that project managers are ultimately responsible for, which is bringing it in on time and bringing it in on budget. So, but I've learned a lot since then, been involved in a lot of projects. So the project managers that succeed are not smarter than the project managers that fail. Again, I've been involved in over 500 projects in my career. So lots and lots, seen lots of. Now some of those projects were really big, and some of those projects were obviously small, but I've seen a lot. And so I've seen a lot of different project managers, a lot of different styles and methods. And the ones that are the most successful, they aren't necessarily the smartest of the bunch, but they have a plan and they have a vision. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Is how to create that. So the project managers that thrive, they master communication. They understand the key to your success as a project manager is communication. The key to your success, period, in your career has a great deal to do with communication. And us engineers, we tend to not be the best communicators. So if you want to help yourself get comfortable communicating, take Dale Carnegie course, join Toastmasters, use those kind of tools to help you grow your ability to communicate. So the secret weapons for these project managers are tools and templates for documenting the progress and managing the issues, right? So you want to document what the status is, and then you want to manage through the issues. So it's important that you have some standard documentation. Your organization may or may not, just depends on how sophisticated those organizations are. So we're going to look at some ways that we can avoid some of the mistakes that we've seen. We're going to talk about some of the mistakes and some of the projects. So like I mentioned, if you want a copy of Capital Disaster, just email us, info@capexsales.com. All right, so we're going to talk about the planning process. So several years ago, never forget, this was 1999, I think, right around that time frame. I went in, had an opportunity with a customer, and they had no prior automation experience. And so they were primarily a machining company. So I went in there and started to work with them. And of course, I was eager. I'm a sales guy. I want to sell them whatever they want to buy. And it was early on in my career as well. So I didn't know necessarily how to direct them. But they didn't even know where the equipment was going to be installed. So they had no destination for the equipment. It ended up being a total fiasco, because there was no vision, there was no specification, and there was no supplier selection process, right? So they didn't know what they were doing. They hadn't gone through capital project mastery and had it as a tool for them to use in creating a vision, creating a specification, and then helping them in that supplier selection process. And it was a hot mess. That project, overall it was a $3.4 million project, and I bet it cost them $4.2 million by the time it was all said and done, simply because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what they wanted. They kept changing things all the way through the process. It was really a hot mess because they hadn't taken the time beforehand to really understand what it was that they wanted or needed in the equipment. So nowadays, of course, I would help them with that. I would help to make sure that they were very clear on what it was that they wanted, because that's how I've just learned over the years, that's how we ensure success. So vision creation. So there's a lot of words on these slides, so I will apologize ahead of time for that. But so our job as project managers is to communicate the vision to the organization. So there are some critical elements that we're going to go through right now that talk about those that vision, how we should articulate it. So you want to make sure that you include all the stakeholders, so ensuring that the future of the business increase profitability through efficiency or better quality of products. So why is it that you are doing this project? You want to communicate that with the stakeholders. Obviously, the goal with any business is to increase our efficiency. Increased efficiency means increased profitability, and then we produce better quality products as well. Would be an ideal. So new business, increased profitability, better quality. Or getting rid of safety issues. Those are the main reasons that we do capital projects. So I want you to create a picture, really, articulate where the equipment is going, what it's going to look like, where it's going to fit in the facility, and how it's going to help the business grow long term. So that's when you are, again, really making the argument, making the case for buying this capital equipment. So help the stakeholders compare and contrast existing equipment or similar operations to help them wrap their minds around what it is that you're asking for and what it is that they should expect. So again, through the planning process, we're creating a vision here, right? So you want to create that vision and also create a detailed specification for your suppliers. So you want to balance the specificity in your RFQ, in your specification, so that your suppliers can use their experience and also be creative in the quoting process. What I've seen from time to time is customers go the opposite direction as far as providing detail, and they detail out exactly what they want for the processes and for these process steps, for the equipment, what they want it to look like, what chassis they want to use. And so they get so clear that there's no opportunity for the company to leverage the strengths of their suppliers. So you want to find suppliers that have experience with what you're trying to put together or process you're trying to implement, and then leverage that experience, but make sure to set some guardrails. That's really what a specification is. There's some guidelines that they need to stay within, but allow that creativity so that they can get you their experience, or that you can leverage their experience. So a few key topics here. So general information. So if you want more information on this, we've done a webinar specifically on creating the ultimate RFQ. So, but the general information, we want key contacts, critical dates, part volumes, OEE, some of those numbers, some of the specific numbers for the project. You want to make sure that we got the documentation, drawings, models, design status. Where is it? Is it frozen? Is it not? It's part function. So help the supplier understand how the product works. Believe it or not, that can be a challenge sometimes because of the uniqueness of the operations or applications that we see. You want to set the runoff criteria. So when is it okay to ship the equipment, and what's the process expectation after it has arrived at your facility? Data collection requirements. What type of data are you going to be creating? What's the expectation with that data? You're going to have outputs. What is that going to be like? Logistics. How will the products be presented to the line? So that is important. And this is a key element that we often leave out. We think about logistics after the fact. So we need to think about it prior to, so that the customers understand what we are doing. So I say the customers, I mean the stakeholders, the people that we're getting money from to buy the equipment. Okay, so for more information, like I mentioned, we did a webinar on creating the ultimate RFQ. Okay, do you have a supplier selection process? Really important. I see this. This is probably one of the most common, other than not having an appropriate budget, that I experience. So we have no supplier selection process. So no spreadsheet, nothing that is defining what the ideal supplier is, and to help us make a smart decision. So here are some guidelines for that process. Assess your supplier situation. Have you had satisfactory experiences with your suppliers in the past? What went well? What didn't go so well? Have you done any lessons learned from past projects? Really important that you take that tribal knowledge and you document it for future reference. We often forget the pain that we go through in executing a project, because when it's done, it's done, but sometimes going through it, it's absolutely painful. So we want to remember that pain so that we don't repeat it over and over again. So identify the characteristics of the ideal supplier, their experience, the proximity to your facility, what type of support do you have expectations of, are there certifications that you're required, ISO, TS, some of those certifications. So it's important to get clear on what you expect that supplier's credentials to be. And then you want to create a supplier selection matrix that identifies the potential supplier for interview. So who are you going to interview to be a part of this? Now, I want you to also think about, during the supplier selection process, I want you to, as soon as you reach out to a supplier, you are monitoring their responses back to you. Because if they are interested, if they are hungry, they are going to immediately follow up. They're going to set meetings up. They're going to check in with you regularly to keep the process moving forward. That's what you want. You want a supplier that is on point, is ready to and eager to serve your applications. If a supplier, you reach out to them and it takes them a long time to get back to you, then you need to make sure that there is a spot in your matrix for noting that. Responsiveness, accuracy, creativity, that's what I'm talking about there. So use supplier matrix to make sure that you make a common sense selection. Here's another challenge that I see, and I want to encourage you as a manufacturing engineer or a project manager, if you get into a project, if your management says, here you go, Joe, you get a new project, and you get $500,000 for the budget, but it's going to be $1.5 million project, I would encourage you to run. I would encourage you to hand it back to them. I know that's not an option sometimes, but at the end of the day, the biggest challenge that I see, witnessed, and experience with customers is when they don't have enough budget, they try to get by and flounder in the process. Getting by without enough money to do what you need to do to execute a project is stressful for the organization, and it will jeopardize the relationship with your customer because the quality of product and the reliability of the equipment will be compromised. So therefore you could be late and you could be delivering bad products. And that is a recipe for disaster when it comes to our customer relations. So why are most projects undercapitalized? The team that will purchase and execute the project was not consulted during the quoting process. Very common. So here's the solution. Companies should have a formal quoting process to ensure the people that will live with the capital equipment have been involved in developing the budget. Really important. I know some companies that are really good at this, and I know other companies that are really terrible at it. So it's important that those align, because the interest, there's sometimes mutually opposed, or they oppose each other, in that your sales and marketing team is eager to win the project, and oftentimes they'll do the quote, and you are, what's important to you is that you have enough funding to properly execute the project. And those two aren't necessarily aligned, because they want to win the project and you want to have enough money. And sometimes your customer doesn't want to pay for what's necessary, and therefore you get in a bind as a result. So the original plan was to install a new program onto existing piece of equipment. Seen this many times, right? So you plan to put it on an existing piece of equipment, but the assumptions that were made were incorrect, and the new product will not fit on the existing piece of equipment. So what happens is you have to purchase a new piece of equipment. Well, you don't have the budget for a new piece of equipment because you're planning to put it on an existing piece of equipment. That is, again, a recipe for disaster. So the solutions to this: companies should verify that the assumptions made during the quoting process will be physically possible when the time comes to implement the line. I know that sounds very elementary, but at the end of the day, it is necessary to say elementary things, because I've seen this multiple times. We're going to put it on that line. It turns out we don't have access to that line. We're not going to have time to put it on that line. The product has changed and it's not going to fit on that line. The pallets aren't going to be compliant or capable of handling the part. We don't have changeout tooling, whatever. There are a multitude of reasons why it doesn't work, but they should have done that homework up front to avoid that problem. So again, we're talking about undercapitalization of projects. So management aggressively pursued the business. That's what I mentioned there earlier. So they cut the budget necessary because they really wanted to win the new program from the customer. And so as a result, they don't have the appropriate budget. So the solution to this, and this is the pain pill that most companies will never take, but management should work with engineering during the negotiation to ensure that they retain the commitment of the team that will need to execute the project. Seems like a good leadership rule, but it would be wise to set minimums based on past projects to protect the company from management that is too aggressive. So we see that from time to time, that management gets aggressive. They quote a project too low, and then therefore success is going to be impossible. No budget quotes were from suppliers that could potentially build or retrofit the equipment. That means that they didn't request any budgetary quotes. They just came up with the numbers themselves. And of course, if you don't do this for a living, then that's going to be a challenge. So bring the suppliers that specialize in this product or then this type of equipment, and have them provide you with a budget quote. So get that list of potential suppliers that you're going to target and reach out to them and leverage that relationship to help you keep yourself out of trouble by getting the real numbers, getting some real budget numbers. So here are some suggestions to get yourself in a position to more successfully quote the new programs at your facility. Okay, get to know the industry quoting process. So it's essential to support and enhance the process of your company and not to burden it. So it's really important that you understand how your industry works as far as quoting projects. And if obviously, if you've been doing this for a long time, of course, but if it's a no-brainer. But if you're new, it's important to understand and know and be knowledgeable before you actually get a project that you're going to be responsible for. So most companies are behind when it comes to capital estimates. The method of combating that is to have a quick reference system. So if your company has done countless quotes for your potential customers, create a spreadsheet and have that as a quick reference. Have tabs on it that talk about different scenarios, adding to this equipment or new equipment for this, new press system, new torque system, new tester, new functional test equipment. So have that all tabbed out and have examples so that you have a point of reference for budgets. Very simple to do, straightforward, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't actually do it. So it's also a good idea to have select vendors, like I mentioned earlier, that you will go to for estimates. Just have a go-to list in that same spreadsheet where you've got all of the experience documented as well. So the yearly capital budget for your department will include projects for upgrading, automating your current processes. So if you don't do it right, if you don't have enough money, it's going to cause problems and cause challenges with your relationship. So again, here are some things to consider. Create a template, spreadsheet, labeled according to the major aspects. So you do this yourself, where you've got the major component estimates, you've got the hours that you think it's going to require, outside services that you're going to be necessary, your internal resources that you're going to be required, and then your estimated downtime if you're going to retrofit, if you're going to put it in to new equipment. So get that all documented get it out of your mind onto a spreadsheet, and then you can work that around with your suppliers to see and get it a sanity check. So over time, you get better and better at estimating those numbers, and that'll make you more valuable to your organization as well. Because again, many people don't apply the discipline necessary to do this work. So ask the professional. So replacing a control system, ask a controls engineer. I know all of this sounds like common sense, but common sense is not always common practice. So build unexpected issues into your plan. It's gonna take longer than you expected. It's gonna cost more money than you expected. So your role, remember, as a project manager, is to manage risk. And the risk is when it's going to be late and when it's going to cost too much, because that is going to impact the return on investment for your company. And of course, the only reason that they are buying new equipment is there are two reasons really: safety improvement to make sure no one gets hurt. And then the second reason is a return on investment. That's it. So is it going to make them more efficient? So we get a better return on our investment, on our money. So really important. Okay, so in summary, successful projects start with a vision. Create a vision. No house was ever built without a vision. No building, no skyscraper, nothing is ever built without a vision. So your capital project should not be any different. Create a vision for that capital project. Again, what's it going to look like? Where's it going to go in the facility? What are the benefits to the organization? Get the stakeholders involved, help everyone understand and get the vision and get excited about the project. So provide clear expectations to your supplier via a project specification. You want them to understand exactly what you want, but yet leave the criteria open, supply the guardrails so that they can use their creativity and experience to ensure that you get the best bang for the buck in their creativity and their experience in the quotation. So having an intentional approach to selecting suppliers, right? What is the vision for the ideal supplier for the application and specifically for your organization? What type of companies do you work well with? So proper funding. We talked multiple slides on that and how important it is that you have the funds necessary to execute, because otherwise you're going to have quality problems, you're going to have downtime issues, and it's going to unnecessarily stress your organization. And they don't measure stress, right? So they'll say, we're going to cut your budget by $200,000. So you go from $700,000 to $500,000. Well, that $200,000 can create a tremendous amount of stress for your organization because of the 24-hour service requirements. Your maintenance people get stressed because they always have to be working on it. Your engineers get stressed. Your operators get stressed. Everyone is stressed in the organization because the equipment lacked the funding necessary to do it right. So it's important that you make sure that you're getting the right budget. So get involved in the quoting process yourself. If you are, the best way to control your destiny is to take control of your destiny by being a part of the process. So create the spreadsheet, volunteer, engage in the process for your organization. It will help you grow as an engineer, and it will help you raise your status in your organization. Prepare a budget in advance. So what does that look like? Like I said, the spreadsheet, get that out in detail, make some tabs, understand from your perspective an idea of what this equipment should cost. So next, we're going to have part 2 on December 9th. We're going to talk about more capital disaster stories. If there's a topic that you would specifically like to know more about, please let us know. Again, it's info@capexsales.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how these are going for you and how we can, again, add more value. So as always, we thank you so much for your business. You're the reason that we exist. You can contact Mike Dorsey in South Carolina, Chris Mullins in Eastern North Carolina and Virginia. And then my name is Russ Sorrells, and I cover Western North Carolina and then some select accounts in upstate South Carolina. Until the December 9th, appreciate you. Hope you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.